I am from a small town in Saskatchewan, Canada. I am writing this because I recently had a run-in with something or someone very terrifying while walking home from my boyfriend's house late at night. It's been keeping me up at night, and I thought maybe if I wrote this down, it would help to get it out of my system. If you want to use this story, please feel free. I have removed all identifying details about myself and my boyfriend in the town I live in. But yeah, here we go. So, I was walking home from my boyfriend's house. We live quite close to each other, and it was about 2 or 3 in the morning. The roads are dark because most streetlights are off in this town, so we decided to walk home together. Normally, I drive home by myself, but he offered to walk me since he was already awake playing video games and he had asked me to stay over. We started walking and joking around, just having a nice time. It was nice to have a little bit of company after midnight when most people in town are asleep. About 10 minutes into our walk, we heard some chains dragging metal moans. My boyfriend and I both stopped dead in our tracks and listened intently. All we could hear was chains dragging and heavy breathing. It was coming from the alley across the street from us. My boyfriend and I started walking again, faster now, not wanting to stop and see what was making the noise. As we were walking, we heard more dragging, but this time it sounded like it was beside us. My boyfriend and I broke into a light jog and turned our heads to look behind us. We couldn't see anything. I was starting to get freaked out. I told my boyfriend I wanted to keep walking. We continued on, and soon enough, the dragging noise stopped. My boyfriend and I made it to his house without any interruptions. I breathed a sigh of relief and thanked him profusely for walking me home. He was very sweet and told me not to worry about it. I should add that neither my boyfriend nor I are scaredy cats. We don't believe in ghosts, monsters, or anything like that. Neither of us had ever gotten scared when we were alone at night before. We shrugged off the strange sounds as just our imaginations and went to sleep. The next morning, I woke up and told my mom about the weird things we heard the night before. She didn't really believe me, thinking it was probably just some large animals or something. A few hours later, I was driving to work and noticed some kids playing near the spot where the weird dragging noise had happened. I stopped my car and asked them if they had heard any strange noises or seen anything unusual the night before. They said no and asked why I asked. I told them about the noise my boyfriend and I heard, and they looked at me, confused. One of them finally answered, "You mean the train?" I responded, "What train?" The kids looked at me as if I was stupid. They explained that there was a train that went by every night and that it was very loud. They also said that sometimes the train drags some old pieces of metal with it and that the noise can be heard all around town. Relieved, I thanked them and drove away. I got to work, tried to focus on my tasks, but kept thinking back to the sound we heard. Surely, a train would make more than just dragging chains, right? Still, I tried to convince myself that it was just a train. Later that day, I came home and checked online to see if there was any record of a train going by in the middle of the night. There wasn't. I knew then that whatever we heard was no train. I told my boyfriend about the kids and what they said, and how I still could unconvince myself that it was a train. We checked online for records of trains that go by at night. There weren't any. My boyfriend suggested we take a walk down to the alley where we heard the dragging to see if we could find anything. I agreed, and we grabbed a flashlight and walked down to the alley. It was a hot summer night, so we walked barefoot. We were looking all around the alley, trying to find where the dragging may have come from. The dragging noise only happened right where our road intersects with the alley. It was a wide open area, there was nothing to be found. We walked back up to our roads and continued walking. We walked past the spot where we heard the dragging again, and I noticed tire marks in the dirt. I shone my flashlight in the tire marks and saw that they were from a semi-truck. The dragging must have been the trailer. I said to my boyfriend, "Look, I guess it was just a semi-truck." He agreed, but I could tell he didn't believe it either. The next night, we decided to stay in and watch a movie. About an hour into the movie, we heard chains dragging. This time, it was much louder. It sounded like it was outside our door. My boyfriend and I clung to each other on the couch, listening intently. When it stopped, we ran to the window to look outside. There was nothing there. We called the police non-emergency line to see if anyone else had called in about hearing chains dragging. They said they hadn't. The next night, we heard the dragging again. It was closer to our door. We stayed huddled on the couch, watching the front door. The dragging noise seemed to be coming from the other side of the house. My boyfriend and I took off running to the back door to look out. We couldn't see anything. The dragging noise stopped. My boyfriend and I never heard the dragging again. However, we do often hear chains dragging from far away. Sometimes the sound seems to be close to our house, and sometimes it sounds like it's far away. I still haven't been able to bring myself to go out to investigate. My boyfriend says it's just my imagination, but I disagree. Whatever it is, I hope it stays away from me. When I was 15, I had this unforgettable experience that still gives me chills. It was the first time I stayed over at my best friend Tyler's house. His family had just moved into this big 2-story place in a quiet neighborhood outside of Denver. You know, the kind of house you see on the cover of those fancy real estate magazines? Neatly trimmed lawn, a wraparound porch, and old oak trees lining the driveway. It looked perfect from the outside, but inside, well, that's a whole different story. The moment I stepped in, I felt this eerie vibe. The floors creaked, even when I was just standing still, and there was this musty smell that clung to the air like it had soaked into the wallpaper. I remember thinking it was a bit strange for such a nice house. Tyler's parents were out of town that weekend, and he was totally pumped to have the place to himself. We spent most of the night in the living room, playing Xbox and munching on junk food. You know, the usual teenage hangout vibe. But when the clock struck 2 a.m., we decided to call it a night. Tyler headed upstairs to his room, and I took the guest bedroom on the first floor. As soon as I walked in, I noticed the room was colder than the rest of the house. Not freezing cold, but just enough to make me shiver a little. The air felt heavy, almost thick, and I figured it was just bad insulation, since there was no vent in the room. Still, something felt off. The bed was one of those tall ones with wooden legs, leaving a huge space underneath. As a kid, I always hated beds like that. They just gave my imagination way too much room to run wild. I turned off the lamp and lay there in the dark, trying to drift off to sleep. But the silence was so thick, it felt like it was pressing down on me. No wind rustling outside, no cars passing by, not even the usual nighttime creaks you expect from an old house. It was just still. Then, just as I was starting to doze off, I heard a soft, dragging sound. It was like something was being slowly pulled across the carpet. My heart dropped. It came from directly beneath me. I tensed up, holding my breath, straining to listen. At first, I tried to brush it off. Maybe Tyler was just messing with me, or maybe I was just half asleep. But then, I heard something that made my blood run cold. Breathing. Slow, shallow, labored breathing coming from under the bed. I froze, completely paralyzed. My heart was pounding so loudly, I thought it might wake the whole house. I wanted to call out to Tyler, but my voice felt stuck. It was like I was trapped in my own body. I reached over and grabbed my phone, my hands shaking like crazy. I turned on the flashlight, leaned over the edge of the bed, and aimed the light underneath. And that's when I saw them. Eyes, too wide, bloodshot eyes, staring straight at me from under the bed. The skin on the face was pale, almost gray, and smudged with dirt. Whoever it was didn't flinch when the light hit them. They just stared, unblinking and completely still. I can't even describe the terror that washed over me in that moment. I screamed and jumped off the bed so fast that I tripped over my own feet. Tyler came running downstairs, panic written all over his face. I was pointing at the bed, yelling that someone was under it. He grabbed a bat from the closet and cautiously lifted the bed skirt, but there was no one there, just emptiness. But the window across the room, which had been locked, was now cracked open, and the screen was gone. Snow from outside had blown in, but there were no footprints leading away, just an open window and this horrible, suffocating silence that wrapped around us like a thick fog. The cops came and searched the property, but they found no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, nothing at all. It felt like a scene from a horror movie, and I was just waiting for the credits to roll. But what really freaked me out was what Tyler's dad admitted to us later. He said the previous owners had sold the house quickly and under market value. When they were asked why, they simply said they weren't comfortable living there anymore. Their teenage daughter had woken up several times, claiming someone was under her bed. At first, they thought she was just imagining things, but then they found smudges on the floor and long black hairs under the mattress. Can you imagine? It was like a nightmare come to life. I still think about that night sometimes, and it gives me the creeps. I mean, who was really under that bed? Why did those eyes stare at me without a hint of fear? It's one of those mysteries that might just haunt me forever. This wild story takes me back to 8th grade, and I can't help but smile at the memory of my best friend Natalie's birthday party. She had invited 6 of us for a sleepover, and let me tell you, her house was something else. It was one of those charming old colonial-style homes, you know, the kind with creaky floorboards that seemed to whisper secrets and a layout that had its own quirky personality. Seriously, every corner felt like it had a story to tell, and I loved that about it. As the night rolled on, we decided to spice things up with a classic game-summoning Bloody Mary. I know, classic middle school shenanigans, right? Just harmless dares to get our hearts racing and scare ourselves silly, okay? Me? What could possibly go wrong with a little ghostly fun? We were all giggling and trying to act brave, but deep down, I think we were all a bit freaked out. So, I was the third one to step into the bathroom, and let me tell you, standing there in the dark was a whole vibe. The air felt thick, and I could barely see my own reflection. It was like the mirror was a portal to another world, and I was definitely not alone on the other side. I whispered her name once, then twice, and when I got to the third time, my heart was racing like I was about to run a marathon. But guess what? Nothing happened, just silence. Still, I couldn't shake this eerie feeling that someone or something was watching me. You know that sensation when you feel like you're being stared at? Yeah, that was me in that moment. When I finally stepped out, the girls erupted in laughter, teasing me about how freaked out I looked. Maybe I did look a little spooked, but I tried to brush it off and dive back into the fun. Yet, that unsettling feeling just wouldn't leave me. Later that night, as we tried to drift off to sleep, the room felt stifling. The chatter had faded, and one of the girls was snoring lightly, creating this oddly comforting sound that made me feel a bit better. I turned over, trying to get cozy, and opened my eyes to find something that still sends chills down my spine. The bedroom door was cracked open, with light spilling in from the hallway, and standing just outside was a girl, but not one of us. She had long, dark hair and wore what looked like an old-fashioned nightgown. Her skin was so pale, almost gray, and her wide, unblinking eyes seemed to pierce right through me. And just like that, she vanished. My heart was racing like crazy. I told myself it was just a dream, that I was exhausted. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. But honestly, I didn't sleep another wink that night. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft sounds of my friends breathing, but my mind was racing with thoughts of that girl. Was she real? Did I really see her? Or was it just my imagination running wild? The next morning, I kept quiet about my terrifying experience. I didn't want to freak anyone out or ruin the fun. But as we sat around the breakfast table, Natalie's mom casually mentioned something that made my stomach drop. She asked who left the bathroom light on all night. The air got thick with tension, and we all exchanged glances. None of us had turned it on. Then, Natalie, looking uneasy, admitted something that sent chills down my spine. She had seen that girl before, in the mirror while brushing her teeth a few times. At that moment, we all felt this heavy silence fall over us. No one wanted to dive deeper into that creepy conversation, but I knew I was done visiting Natalie's house. I mean, how could I go back after that? A few months later, they moved, and I never asked why. I just figured it was for the best. But here's the kicker. Sometimes, when I'm brushing my teeth late at night, I catch a glimpse in the mirror, and for just a split second, I swear there's someone else looking back at me. It's like that haunting memory lingers, reminding me of that spooky night. It's wild how those childhood experiences stick with you, right? I can't help but wonder if there's something more to it. What do you think? Do you believe in ghosts? 'Cause I'm starting to wonder. Maybe it's just my imagination, or maybe there really is something out there. Either way, that night at Natalie's house changed me. It made me realize that sometimes the things we can't explain are the ones that stick with us the most. So, what about you? Do you have any creepy stories that still give you chills? I'd love to hear them.